Mark Taylor-Canfield in Seattle. Hey, Mark, what's happening in Seattle?
Hi, Tom. It was good meeting you again in Seattle, so thanks for signing my book, The War on Voting.
Yeah. Nice to see you. What's up?
Well, I'm executive director for a nonprofit news organization. It's called Democracy Watch News. So we've been reporting on the public health crisis, and we had a lengthy press briefing involving journalists all across the country and a conference call for our podcast called Democracy Cast. But I'm also a musician and a composer, and I was actually a resident composer at the University of Washington at one point. So what I decided to do was to compose an orchestral piece called Quarantine Suite, and it's dedicated to all the heroes on the front lines of this pandemic, and then I'm offering it to the community as a free download at SoundCloud. You can also go to YouTube and get it. I was able to work with some musicians remotely to record the piece, so it worked out really well. And I had a chance to work with some really good musicians. But I'm really concerned about the music industry here in Seattle, Tom, because I am a musician. I have a band, too. And I'm watching the Showbox Theater, or the grand old lady here that we've been trying to save for years, the Crocodile, Numos, the Moore Theater. By the way, the Crocodile, I think, was partially owned by Peter Buck from REM at one point. He actually came here to Seattle because he really liked the music scene. And I'm sure a similar thing is happening in Portland, which also loves its music scene, its independent music scene. But a lot of clubs are trying to raise money online, and I'm just really worried, Tom, that after this is over, that some of these clubs are not going to make it, and that the music industry is really going to suffer. Because we know the arts is usually working on a shoestring budget in the United States anyway. Unlike when I was in Europe, and I got to travel and go to festivals that were where my expenses were paid for by the French Ministry of Culture or UNESCO or whatever. Here in the United States, it's really hard for musicians and artists of all kinds that are out there. And so I'm just hoping that our political representatives will come up with some ideas. I've been talking to Pramila Jayapal about this, our congresswoman, on a couple conference calls. But how do we save the music industry in Seattle? How do we save the music industry in Portland, which is so vital? And I'm wondering what is happening in Portland in terms of the clubs. Are they all closed too? And how are they going to survive?
Yeah, everything's closed here, and it's going to be it is a very, very, very difficult time for these businesses, for the music scene, for people, and particularly for musicians who were basically gig workers. In fact, many of them making so little that they're not filing taxes and things, and as a consequence of that, they're probably not getting the $1,200 check, and they may not get future checks. So it is a big issue that something should be done about it. And then, in one of Trump's rallies yesterday or the day before, his TV rallies, he was saying, the Democrats, they put money for the Kennedy Center and the stimulus bill. Well, yeah, it was a few $1 million, and it was because the Kennedy Center is owned by the federal government. And so you have to maintain your damn properties even if they're not being used. And and you want to keep your employees, on payroll for future times. But he's complaining about the arts being funded, right? And so, as long as Republicans are in control, as long as Republicans control the Senate, as long as there are any Republicans in the House, as long as there's a Republican in the White House, I'm not holding my breath that anything is going to be done to help the arts, or frankly, anybody other than the billionaire class. We'll be back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
The Thom Hartmann program, the place where despair is not an option.